Harlequin presents and HarperAudio present The Bump and Their Forbidden Reunion by Amanda Cinelli, performed by Sheridan. Chapter 1. Izzy O'Sullivan stared at the chubby-faced babies in the photos that lined the Swiss fertility clinic's testimonial wall and felt her chest tighten with excitement. Today was the day. By this time next year, her child's picture would be up on this wall too, accompanied by her own smiling face full of maternal joy. She was finally going to be a mother. Well, she would be on her way to becoming one if the doctor would hurry back from whatever emergency she'd been called out to. Izzy had arrived at the glossy marble front desk perfectly on time 2 hours ago. First, they'd struggled to find her charts, and then a series of phone calls had to be made while she sat out in the waiting room. Now, with every passing minute, she just couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. The clinic was decorated more like a hotel than the plain, sterile hospital where she had done her preliminary checkups back home, but still she felt nausea threaten, as it did for her in all medical situations. She tried to get comfortable on the examination bed, smiling as her brightly painted toes poked out from the end of the sheet. A bubble of emotion clogged her throat as she remembered how carefully her best friend Eve had painted the tiny flowers and bumblebees on each toe the night before. Because, babe, you're much more terrified of bees than hospitals, so they're bound to cancel each other out. Their friendship had once been the closest thing to family that either of them had ever had, after their shared experience of growing up in the Irish foster care system. But Eve had a little family of her own now, with her wife Moira getting ready to give birth to their first child any day. Izzy was determined to prove that she could do this alone, that she was ready. A nurse re-entered the room, the same one who had first instructed her to undress an hour ago, and then stood completely stone-faced while Izzy awkwardly joked about preferring to be taken out on a date before she got naked. There had even been a loud tut when Izzy was taking off her scuffed biker boots, whilst trying to maintain some level of privacy over her plus-sized curves. She hadn't thought she'd needed to dress for the occasion, but judging by the similar looks that had been thrown her way in the waiting area, her graphic rock band t-shirt and comfy leggings ensemble was a little out of the ordinary from the clothes of their usual clientele. She had smiled boldly in the other women's direction, resisting the urge to ask if there was an official dress code for being artificially inseminated with your dead husband's sperm. After her short-lived marriage to Singaporean playboy Julian Leong, she was more than a little familiar with the icy stares that came from not fitting into the expectations of his social circles. As always, she refused to let it faze her, not when she had managed to make it to Zurich today against all the odds, with Dublin Airport in chaos due to an Arctic weather system wreaking havoc across Europe. But the nurse was not stone-faced now. If anything, she looked a little nervous as she flipped through a chart and looked furtively across to where Izzy quietly swung her legs from her perch on the cold examination table. She tried not to react when another nurse entered, his face a mask of polite calm even as he leaned in to whisper furiously to his stern-faced colleague. Both shared what Izzy could only describe as a look, and began flipping through the forms that Izzy had painstakingly filled out weeks ago online. She stiffened, her mind expecting a blow even though she knew there weren't any errors. Being dyslexic made written tasks challenging for her, but she knew that she had proofread everything twice with her assistive software. When Julian had finally confided in her about his possible reproductive issues after several months of trying for a baby, and had asked her to consider going down the IVF route, she'd thought it wonderful that he was willing to do anything to have a child with her. She'd had no idea that her husband had been freshly out of rehab when he'd eloped with her, and had been using her in a last-ditch attempt to stop his father from
Sample complete. Ready to continue?